Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever in the world you may be. I'm Bob Wright here for the Transitioning Show. It is September the 14th in the United States, and I'm here with Carmelle and Julien, both of you.
Hello.
Welcome. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, how are you? How's everybody doing?
It's feels like we're on the other side of the Twilight Zone. At least it did for me when I woke up this morning. And I was telling Carmelle and Julien, before the show, Carmelle asked me, "How are you today?" I was like, "Weird." Just feel very a little disorienting almost, but not in a terrible way, but just I feel different internally. I feel different, and I've also noticed that normally, I was explaining to Carmelle, I know that when I'm dreaming, I can tell when I'm working in my dreams, because I wake up with that sense that we've been doing something, and I know it was important, and I can't remember it. I stopped beating myself up over that because I realized that the things that I'm supposed to remember, I always remember, and the things that I'm not supposed to remember, I don't remember. But apparently that's been happening now while I'm awake, where I know that I've just been daydreaming or doing something somewhere else. Don't know what it is, but apparently I've been staring into space for 5 minutes because all my friends around me are like, "Where are you?" And then I can't tell them where I was because I don't remember. And then I look like a complete idiot because I'm apparently just staring into space thinking about nothing. I know it's not nothing, but
Nothing.
I should not be operating heavy equipment.
Yeah, today,
sure.
Yesterday, and the day before, I feel like, were good days to not be operating heavy equipment because the sheer surge of, next dimensional energy or something like that really is causing people who are ready for that to sort of flake out. It's not an excuse to people who know I've been flaking out, but at the same time, it's like we've got more than one foot in both worlds. Now it's like we've got more of a foot in the new world than the old world, where we're not as well grounded in it anymore.
Right.
That makes sense?
I agree with this.
It's awkward.
Completely.
Can
be.
It's awkward.
It's a little awkward, yeah.
It's great because we're able to talk at really wonderful levels. We're able to speak from really great places. But it's like, hold on. Our reality is now taking a hard angle and leaving a lot behind. And, that's, I don't know, is that an issue or is that not an issue? I'm not sure.
Well, wait a minute. You got to kind of be okay right where you are with whatever process you're undergoing at this point, and everybody kind of knows that. But when you wake up feeling weird, I know that there's an impulse to go, "Hey, I'm feeling really weird," just to check in with everybody else, to see, but actually everybody else really doesn't matter. I mean, you're feeling the way you're feeling, and it's really okay.
My nephew called me. He was on. Well, he's sitting next to me now, but he was on his way here. He's like, "Uncle Bobby, something's different." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Are you feeling weird?" I was like, "Yeah." So it's not just me.
No.
And we take it with stride. I don't have any heavy equipment to operate anyway.
Well, I don't know if you remember me talking about last week how there was a shift where the lower energy was not going to be sustained by Gaia anymore. She was not going to cooperate and co-create with the worst stuff, the lowest energy. Well, a lot of people got annoyed that the dark got that kind of attention I feel like she's saying, well, this weekend and this time we're gonna uplift all the people at the top end, all the people doing the light work for this stuff. It's like who gets the attention sort of feeling. And so she's supporting us on this top end this time, and so we're like, woohoo, at the top of the water slide.
Right.
So it feels really good, but it's almost like the priorities for everything have changed.
Mhm.
And you're wondering, oh shoot, should I even look at these older priorities? I mean, what matters at this point? What should I be grounding in? What should I be paying attention to? And it's like you can't ground in anything almost, it seems.
Well, maybe there's the answer, huh? When you're going with the flow. I think that there's a moment for every aspect of the process to engage itself with us. And I have, everybody's got days where they wake up and they think they have to be productive. They have that urge to be productive and do something. But when like Bob woke up this morning, when I couldn't even if I wanted to. God, just be with that and just love that and go, well, it must be for a reason. I'm finding it much easier when I think I want to do something. I have this bug in my bonnet. I want to do something, and it's not coming to me. It's not happening easily. Ease and flow is really the key. If it's not happening in ease and flow, or it doesn't just come right to me immediately, then it isn't happening. Like just before Bob rang me up a few minutes ago, I was saying to myself, I don't know how we're going to do it, and I don't know which show it's going to be on, but I think the topic is self-healing, how to care for yourself, how to be, tender and loving and nurturing towards yourself right now. And Bob went, I think I want to talk about healing. So there was my sign, to say, whenever I'm thinking of something, just allow it to come to me. I'm getting much more patient with this. And patience has never been my forte up until, I would have to say, admit this year. This year it's much easier, and I get many more gold stars, little kisses on my forehead when I do just wait 4 more seconds.
Gold stars, eh?
Yeah, little gold star on my forehead that says, you did it right. There you go. You did it. Look what you get.
Well, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but at least here in the United States, yesterday was Friday the 13th. And I know that has a lot of connotations for a lot of the occult side of things, that Friday the 13th and that number 13 being a significant date, but it feels as though something new was turned on while I slept last night.
Should I give the reference? It feels like the pancake got flipped over. It's been cooking on the first side for a while, and now it's cooking on the other side.
That could be.
Well, numerologically, it was a global 1 year, which is about beginnings. About beginnings. Well. Yeah. And we're messing around, and this is just a language system. This is just a language system that describes frequencies. And we're messing around all year, all of us as a collective pot. We're working on that 6 of love, balance, and responsibility, and that means healing, and that means renegotiating the rules of engagement on all levels in all relationships. From the global, starting from yourself, and then it works its way out. But when I see a 1, I know that people are reinitiating a new thought, a new collective thought. Yeah, I love stories.
So, what I was up to this morning, what I've been up to recently, I think people already know at this point, is I'm going through my divorce process. And there's lots of things to tidy up, lots of things to organize before, you're divorced. It's like finances to separate, there's, kids to take care of and look at what you're going to do there. There's, housing arrangements, all sorts of, separating and creating the lines of what it's going to be now, right? And this morning I was in the bank at our credit union, and we were splitting our car loan because we each have a car, but now we're going to split the actual loan itself, so we had our own separate loans to deal with. And it's this sort of process that's been going on for weeks, just these little projects, and slowly sort of separating this. And this really ties into actually what's going on a more macro level and a micro level. But I'm like separating myself from this old world of the way it's got to be. It's this old arrangement of energy and patterns of how it was. Because at the same time, I'm opening myself up to my future. I'm opening myself up to who I really get to be without these sorts of imposed properties and limits. I'm not going out and saying that my life was limited. It was wonderful the way it was, only that we're moving now in two different directions. She has what she wants to do, and I have what I'm wanting to do. And so there's no animosity there. It's just that, hey, you know what? We got to like untie the knots here a little bit and loosen this up. And it's really about energy, right? Because we had energy knotted and shared between the two of us. We're sharing a lot of common energy resource. And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about, like, you know, we're forced to cooperate on multiple areas where now we really would rather manage it on our own. And like this morning is one of the last couple things that we had to do. And in fact, it's not over. This evening, we'll be talking about, you know, the parenting and family arrangements and stuff. So it's not even over. But it is really sort of like speaking to the change in the way things are going to be. And I can say it's just me. I mean, it's all in my head. I don't know who else is going through divorce and things like that. This is my first one. This is my first only major relationship. So it's very fascinating to see it happening on multiple levels of my life. You know? Like, I don't have a lot of anxieties like other people have, like, you know, like, what am I going to do about my house? What am I going to do about my finances? I don't really have those hiccups, so I'm sort of approaching it on different tangents. Like, everybody's growing. Like, don't assume that where I am seems like, oh, I got a good handle on things. No, I'm doing processing every day. I'm stepping out of one world into another. And, you know, it's all good because we're in good spirits, both she and I, as well. It was like, yeah, this is a good thing. You know, this is good. This is getting better. In fact, we ended up having a refinance, and now both of our payments are actually a lot lower. Like, oh, we should have done this a while ago. Didn't realize. So it's like constant progress. When normally in the past you might have been like, oh, God, how's your breakup going? You know, I feel sorry for you. Like, don't feel sorry. It's going great. You know? So,
well, you know what? Through this whole process, one of the things, and this is kind of related to the health thing, one of the things that is really, really starting to become very apparent to me is the relationship between your emotional state, energy, and your physical body. You know, energy affects your body. And a lot of people are dealing with a lot of physical symptoms, physical pains and aches and things. And throughout life, you understand people, when you deal with stressful energy or discordant energy, a lot of times people deal with it by developing coping mechanisms. And that's another way of saying energy storage. I'll deal with this. I'll deal with this later. You know, you that energy gets placed somewhere. You know, and usually it'll get stored in a certain part of the body or in a certain organ. You know, a lot of times in the liver. You know, kidneys, and that energy, that discordant energy, that's stored in the body in different places in the body, now is starting to come up to be released, or it's becoming so intense that these organs start to malfunction. So a lot of people who haven't done a lot of the processing of this emotional energy, that emotional energy now is becoming so active that it's literally causing people to have breakdowns, in their organs physically, breakdowns. And, there may not be any real quote-unquote physical link to the ailment. And people, well, cancer doesn't run in our family, or diabetes doesn't run in our family, and this doesn't. But the symptoms are still there. The ailment, the physical manifestation of sickness or disease is there. And releasing that emotional energy, making the correlation of what that energy is and what caused it, and releasing that emotional energy is going to become essential to the healing process.
No, it is essential to the healing process. It always was. That's why we are manifesting those symptomologies when we're emotionally denying something, or coping or copping out, whichever direction you decide to go.
Well, I have a real close friend, actually my roommate, and he's dealing with Crohn's disease. And recently it's become very, active again, and he's had it for 13 years now. And we were sitting and we were talking about it, and, he was saying, how, whenever it is that he goes to the hospital or he gets, a real bad bout and he has to go to the hospital, that's the only time that his family actually shows him love.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh. I was like, do you hear what you just said?
Yeah.
I was like, because the question that I had asked him was like, why do you think you created this disease for you? Why are you experiencing it? Why did you create this experience for yourself? And he answered his own question. The only time that I feel love from my family is when I'm sick. And it's these kinds of, things that it wasn't apparent to him, but I recognized what he said immediately. I was like, that's why you've created the disease, and it's not a weakness necessarily in the body. That disease served you. It served a particular purpose. You created it in order to receive what you felt was missing, the love of your family. And I says, now once you understand that, and you understand that you don't need acceptance from anyone outside of yourself in order to feel good, in order to feel whole, then that disease no longer serves you, and you can release it. It will go away.
It'll go away real fast. It'll resolve real fast, yes.
So, a lot of times it's not, it's not necessarily the diet or the food that you're eating, although that can play a part, definitely, in your feeling and sense of well-being. It
aggravates.
Yeah, it can aggravate it, but a lot of times, people say, well, I'm eating the right food, so how do I get rid of this? I'm doing everything I'm quote-unquote supposed to be doing. But it's that emotional connection that they're not making, of what instigated the disease and why the disease was brought on and where it's actually linked to.
There's lots of really good practitioners for helping people figure that out, but they don't go to these practitioners until they get to the point they realize, I've gone to the doctor, I've gone to the hospital, I've gone to the ER, and when I walk in, they don't know what the hell's wrong with me. They keep me for 3 or 4 days running tests, and there's nothing wrong with me except for this one symptom. So then they treat the symptom, which puts you right back into the cop-out phase where I can ignore this because the symptoms are gone until it flares up again. So that emotional healing is really the key for everything you're manifesting in your life that is not in ease and flow. Everything, from finances.
I can relate to the story that Bob shared because I had basically Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis is a more specific variation of it. And I had it for a very long time. And I started to observe when it had what they call a flare-up, which means when it gets worse. And I noticed it was during points of heightened anxiety. And because a lot of people have noticed that I feel I don't get worried easily, that I seem like a very cool and collected person, that I'm very grounded in a lot of ways. But that's a symptom as well that is perfect for the problems that I face by being that way. And that is, I will not address stuff. I'll dismiss stuff more easily than address what's going on until it builds up to a certain point, right? And so the measure of being I can be strong when, my wife is angry at me is one thing, but to actually go through the process of why she's wrong with me is a whole other story, because that's a different kind of work that I feel in the past I put on the back burner, right? Which is not addressing our relationship adequately for her level of comfort and for what her needs are. So a lot of that, I look back on it, and I'm doing very well in the last 2 years, getting better every day, so to speak. I'm as close to being normal as I've ever been, but it's not officially over, and I feel it probably won't be over until I'm continue going after exactly why I hold things in,
Well, there's a lot of this.
Discovering.
There's a lot of this type of processing that's happening right now, and for a lot of people who haven't done a lot of this emotional clearing, they're finding that they're being forced to do it because their bodies are basically pushing the issue forward. They're, and I'm not going to say unfortunately, because that's just one perception from but a lot of people are checking themselves out.
Yep.
Simply so that they can basically get a fresh start in the new energetic body. And that's also a valid, choice for some people to make, that cannot...
No, there's no judgment in this.
No.
This is not a race, and when people are ill, when I was working in medical, and I worked in the alternative and complementary fields primarily, there's, when you're coming out of the allopathic mentality of, well, it's your diet, or, it's repetitive motion, or, let's don't address the emotional aspect that, you've had it since age 10 or whatever, what happened at age 10. Nobody wants to ask that question. So there was always this thing with this patient has cancer and we don't know what to do with them and they're not reacting to the meds, so we're going to send them to you so that you can figure it out because they have a rash and, blah, blah, blah. And so, the doctor and I would kind of look at each other and go, okay, let's hear what the story really is. Now, treat them with kid gloves because they have cancer and we don't want to make them feel guilty or responsible for what they have. Well, wait a minute. They are responsible for what they have.
Yeah.
And you tried to treat them with your kid gloves and you didn't do anything but dismedicate them. We got a lot of people in our office that they medicated and they were not. Now they were hypertoxic because of all of the junk they were throwing at them. And they were having secondary and tertiary type, symptomologies, but they would come to us and we would look at them and say, okay, so tell me about your mother, and, slowly, one needs to become accountable for where they are and what they've created, and the frequencies and the energies that are making Bob dizzy today, and and the other people who are having that experience because of the expansion process are coming closer and closer to being really okay with going, oh, this was all me. And now that I have control of it, I feel so much better about that. I'm not at somebody else's mercy, to figure it out. And maybe
a lot of people will think, it was a strange question when I asked them. I was like, why did you create this disease for yourself?
And you didn't cringe, huh?
And people say, well, no, I got this because of whatever external mechanism. I was exposed to, Agent Orange in the war. I was exposed to this. That was just the mechanism for the creation. That was what was used in order to manifest it. But It's not the cause. It's not the reason. Every situation and every experience is created by us. It's never the other way around. So those are questions that need to be asked, and people, ultimately, they're going to be responsible for the healing. So they also must have been responsible for the creation. It's within their field. It's directly within their body. And to me, that's a direct communication, from your higher self, because when you, I have found that,
it's the homeopathic doctrine is what makes you sick will make you well.
Right.
And that's all energy. That's energy. All homeopathics, whether they're Bach flowers or they're traditional homeopathics, or crystal essences, whatever any energetic medicines are the medicines to be reaching for at this point, because it is all about the energy now, the frequencies, and how they're becoming very fine and very precise.
Right. And when you go about dealing with health issues, especially if it's a potentially life-threatening disease, a lot of people will be thrown into panic. The feeling of desperation, the feeling of victimhood, and usually it's these very feelings that brought the disease on in the first place, and then it just accelerates. It accelerates it. So you got to take it, and this is the hard thing to do when it comes to self-healing, to sit back and relax. Take the time to process. Don't go into desperation, because this is one of the things that I found. This happens so often. Some guy in a white coat that has a whole bunch of letters after his name tells you that you don't have a chance. I was told I would never walk again. Literally, they had people coming in, quote-unquote psychologists and psychiatrists, to prepare me mentally for spending the rest of my life in a wheelchair. And I looked, I was like, how dare you say that? Like, how do you know what's going to happen to me? Like, were you in the future? You can't tell me that there's always new developments. You can't give up hope. But we're going to sit you down with this psychiatrist who's going to, condition you. And, people, that is not the final word. The white coat does not make him all-knowing, nor do the letters after his name make him all-knowing. There is nothing, no disease, ailment that cannot be overcome.
Correct. That's right. I want to offer a suggestion to anybody who's listening. There's a woman. Her name is Anita Moorjani, Anita Moorjani, Moorjani. She wrote a book, Dying to Be Me. Dying to Be Me, which just about says it all. She was ill. She was dying of lymphoma. Just really, this stuff was eating her up. She was dead. She fought it for 4 years. She died. She had a reconciliation and a reclamation in her near-death experience, and she came back to teach people that the only reason she was in the state that she was in with that disease was because she was in denial of her essence self. And she was told during this near-death experience that you're going to go back now, and if you want to, you don't have to if you don't want to. You're going to go back now, and when you do, you're going to look for the joy. You're going to look for you're going to look for the magic. She became one of those spontaneous remission kind of people, and there's spontaneous remissions of all diseases, all ailments, all twitches can be spontaneously resolved once we really get to the truth of ourselves. and accept and stop denying parts of ourselves that, first of all, we might not know about because we believed other people's rules and projections. And that includes our doctors, but mostly it comes from our culture. Mostly comes from our perception of our culture. And so ultimately the bag is in your hands. It's your perception. These were your beliefs that you chose to hang on to. And as soon as you drop the bag of doo-doo that you've been carrying around and logging around for all of your life, and so too goes all of your twitches and your physical ailments. And we all have them. I mean, we all have a little something in the time reality that we live in. But these people who I believe, and I was one of them, this year I went through my own. I had to go through my own. And I felt all of these, I wanted a new body. I just, I was done with this junk, and there were things I didn't want to know. And then they started to come up. But I found that when I got to that critical point physically, that the things that were coming up were far easier for me to accept than dying, because I really didn't want to leave. It was a way for me to, I thought, subconsciously, but then it became conscious. I realized what I was doing, for me to jump over something that I really don't want to jump over. I really do want to be in my truth. It feels much better to stand in your truth.
There's also, in this new energy, there's much easier communication that can take place between your awareness and your body's awareness, your body's consciousness. People have been using kinesiology in order to communicate with the body, but there is a much more open communication that is now available, where your body can now communicate directly to your consciousness. That usually happens in your subconscious or in your dream time, where it will tell you, people might be dreaming that they're dying of thirst, and that their body is saying, "Well, I need clean water. This is the communication. You need water. Stop drinking whatever it is that you're drinking and start drinking some clean water." But you can also communicate directly to the cells of your body. You can communicate, and the body is always listening. The body is always listening. When you sit and you say, "Oh God, I hate my body," or "I can't stand," it's listening. It's always listening. Every cell in your body has heard that affirmation. You hate me. And how does it feel to you when you hear someone, maybe you're not meant to hear it? You hear a conversation of someone who you thought was your friend, who loved you, and you hear them make a statement like that. How does that make you feel?
Well, it brings you right down.
Immediately.
It weakens all of your systems.
Yeah, really. And that's exactly what happens to your cells. Those individual cells that you've just, cursed, they heard you. So, and it's not, and you can't fool yourself either. You can't say, "Oh, I love you," and still hold that feeling that I really don't like this part of my body, or I don't like this genetic trait that I have, or whatever it is.
Yeah. This is how I eat ice cream. I get the Ben and Jerry's, and I open the lid, and I just start singing, "I love you, this is love." And I'm gonna eat you 'cause I love. Honest to God, I don't have the normal dairy responses that I don't get.
You know what? When I see you in person, Carmelle, I'm gonna buy you a big tub of Ben and Jerry's.
You better have Eric Garcia in your hand.
Well, Bob, you know that people do try to lie to themselves, though. They certainly do.
Say that. I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
I'm saying people do try to lie to themselves, though. There's a lot of that going around.
Yeah.
They do try to do a really light patch-up job.
Right. Yeah, they do.
And nowadays, it's like nothing is going to patch up anything anymore. All the bandages are coming off. All the wounds are being exposed. time to
the healing. I love it. The healing of 6. That's really where we are. You know, when I talk about 6, this is the way I have to describe what I'm seeing. I'm so sorry, but it's my lingo. 6 has 3 layers of recognition. It's the relationship and love between the self and the self first. The relationship and love between the self and the close community that you've created and attracted. You know, and if you're not accepting that, you gotta go back to step 1 again and find out what went wrong with the origination point. And then the 3rd layer is your relationship between you and the grand scheme of everything, the all. And so healing is, you know, my relationship that I have with myself is the relationship I have with everybody else. There are no exceptions. And that includes my body, if you want to look at it in an external sense.
Well, you know, when you're talking with your body in that sense, Carmelle, you know, if you were to see someone who was suffering or they were in pain or they had some sort of problem, the first thing that you would do is you would ask them what's wrong. You know? Like there's a whole colony of cells, you know, in your liver that are bothering you or in your stomach or wherever the disease may be. And if you can't make that emotional connection, you can ask them.
Out loud.
Out loud. What's wrong? How can I help? You know, what are your grievances? What is the energy that's upsetting you? You know, I wasn't aware. Please help me to be aware of what this energy is that's upsetting you. And that type of approach and that type, it may sound crazy because it's completely, you know, counterintuitive to what Western medicine goes by.
Yeah.
But this type of inner dialogue is so tremendously helpful in your healing process. And I don't have any white lab coat or any letters at the back of my name, but I have been very, very sick, deathly sick. You know, I have gone through life-threatening physical conditions and overcome them. And this is how I did it. You know, so take it for what it's worth. You can start developing a more interactive relationship with every cell in your body. They are alive and conscious just like you are. They react to love and emotion and pain just like you do. So treat them just the way that you would like to be treated. You know, start to develop that inner dialogue, and you will find, you know, you will have a dream or just a flash, something will flash in your mind, and you'll make the connection, and you'll understand where that energy that's causing the disease is coming from. And it's important to pay attention, you know, to be very, very aware of what's going on, that internal dialogue.
It's worth it. Think about it. It's really cheap, too.
Yeah,
very
it's
affordable.
Well worth it. Yeah. It doesn't cost you anything to, for instance, EFT. You know, to sit and tap and love yourself. You know, my body is perfect right now. It's it's aligning. It's aligning all of my cell functions, my systems, and my organs in perfect balance right now. Right, and the more you say that, you take possession of what it is right now. Not it's getting better. No, it is better. It's better. It's right now. It's realigning. It's restabilizing. It's balancing right now. Those people who want to lose weight, my body is releasing the excess body fats and toxins right now. You know, these are the words you have to start using for when you want to make physical morphs of your body. You can do it. How many people have done this before in their life? They've gone to the gym and they focused very hard. I want to have a six-pack, or I want to have this or that or the other. I want to be well. It's really easy to start with. There's I got to tell you this. There was when I was in my 20s in Miami, there was a comedian at a club, and his name was Uncle Dirty. He's got to be like 100 now, but he was hysterical. He used to say, He was like George Carlin. That's the kind of person he was. He was right out there. And he said, you know, I don't go to bars on the weekends anymore unless I'm working. He said, when I want to pick somebody up, I look in the mirror and I pick myself up. I make myself a dinner. I run myself a bath, you know. And he went deeper and deeper into the details of what he was going to do to himself that night. But we all laughed. But he was like, I at that point I recognized. I said, this is a man who's got something really good going on with this thing that he's doing, this skit that he's doing. You know, he's really in his humor telling people you got to love yourself first. I mean, you have to have an affair with yourself to really take the reins back into your hands. You got to decide.
It's okay to cheat on others with yourself.
With yourself. You're going to have an affair on a relationship that you've made a commitment about. You can always change your mind about those things. Just do it respectfully, I believe. But, you know, you can always say, I don't want to be bothered for the next 24 hours. I'm taking myself out on a date.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. I really like that. That's the new prescription. So you know what you need? You need a date for yourself.
You need to go date yourself for a little while. If you're having disharmonious relationships over and over again, you need to date yourself and figure out what that whole thing is all about, really. You know, so
to make sure the date goes well.
Yeah, and you will. I mean, you will, because you have to face yourself. You're not going to say to the other person, passive aggressive, what do you want to do? It's like those two blackbirds. I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Somebody make a decision about what is joyful and what is inspiring for you, and that's you. You make those decisions. So I had my ex-husband, who's a really good friend of mine. When we were married, and he would sail for 2 months at a time, and when he came home, there was a honey-do list of things for him to do. Now, he's not a fix-it man, okay? And I always used to push him to be the fix-it man because I didn't have another fix-it man, and and we didn't want to pay anybody else to do it. I would have, but he didn't want to pay anybody else to do it. So there was a honey list waiting for him when he came home from 2 months. Now, mind you, 2 months of sailing on the ocean blue, free as a bird, you know, just nothing bothering him. He had his job down. He's a deck officer on the big tankers, large ships. And so, you know, he had it made. He would come home to a farm. We're talking 40 acres with, you know, things to cut down and things to mow and fences to mend and reconstruction in the house. So I'd hand him this list. So I'd say to him, did you get to X, Y, or Z? And he would, and we still laugh about this. He would grab his right shoulder and he'd go, like it was in pain, he was in pain. And he had a previous injury, but it would only bother him when I was nagging him about the honey-do list. And he'd go, immediately I would go, what is that? What is that? You only grab that arm and yell that when you're being nagged. Okay, you don't want to be nagged, do the list, or don't commit to doing it. Let me have the checkbook. I'll go hire somebody. You have a way out of this pain, you know?
You know, I have, you know, it reminds me, I have seen people manifest sprained ankles, broken arms, broken legs to get out of events they don't want to attend.
Yes. Yes. So I was there like a month ago. He grabbed his shoulder, and I looked at him, and I went, give me a break. You still whining about that? And he started laughing, and the pain went away. Bing, bong, just like that. So those emotional rules that we have, that we hope for ourselves, you know, that's your relationship between you and you. You know, take yourself out on a date. Seduce yourself in the way you've always wanted to be seduced. You know, it's all in your head anyway. You know? Make it yours. And then when you do come upon relationship where there is something that you want, that somebody says, how can I help you? I don't care what it is. You can then give them a real, truthful answer instead of going, I don't know what you want to do, you know, which doesn't work. which causes sprained ankles and internalized or immobilizing, internalizing illnesses and imbalances. Everybody has funny stories about wimping out somehow because you didn't want to do something. The belly aches in school, right?
Yeah. I've done that. Get out of school, threw up right in the kitchen floor.
Right? I could never do that. I couldn't do that. But I did manifest a sprained ankle and a headache.
I'm guessing I just can't hear the call because if I'm talking over you, that means I'm speaking and I'm not getting anything on my end in terms of hearing anything. So